Good day, ma'am and sir. Here's our presentation for Final Defense with our research title Social Control and Ideological Delinquency of Children in Conflict with the Law in Elizalde, Mako, Davao de Oro. Social control theory is widely used to determine youth delinquency. This can be applied to fully understand the function of illegal activities in ideological aspect. The theory of social control anchors with criminal delinquency states that mostly teenagers at a young age is involved in criminal act. According to Hershey, social control theory says that criminal behavior is controlled by four elements, which is attachment, commitment, involvement, and belief. Youth who indulge in ideological delinquency tend to commit an crime involved in any illegal activities compared to legal activities. They find gratitude being involved in illegal as they view it as a strong manifestation of their commitment and belief in their ideology. More studies of ideology get the grips with its commitment and illegal activities of delinquents. They tend to view tourism's in political aspect, suicidal activity, and in affliction among political offenders as a way of experiencing a strong delinquence or ideology. According to Cobrain, that delinquency described as social constraints in an area that are undermined criminal and ideals blend with traditional and conventional institutions. As a result, the current research is attempt to investigate whether the control measures of attachment, commitment, involvement, and belief enumerated by Hershey can explain whether the concept of social control theory notion may be utilized to explain the legal instructions with when there is a conflict between one's beliefs and the obligation of the laws of the country in which one lives. Another very important implication is that, in essence, ideological obligation of juvenile delinquents is the consequence of community inability to realize shared values and address residents' problems lead to a breakdown of ineffective social control within that community. This study aims to determine the level of social control in terms of attachment, commitment, involvement, and belief, and determine the level of ideological delinquency in terms of legal and illegal activities. The purpose of this study is to find out whether a significant relationship exists between social control and ideological delinquency of children in conflict with the law in Mako, Davao de Oro.
Good day, panelists. I'm Regalyn Turicelio from the group Z2087. Our title is Social Control and Ideological Delinquency of Children and Conflict with the Law in Elizalde, Mako, Davao de Oro. To be continued and methodology. Participants. So this study employed quantitative research with the use of correlational analysis method that is sought to dig deep into understanding the relationship between social control and ideological delinquency. So in order to get that desired result in the study, the respondents are consist of 300 participants, which was demographically selected from the Barangay Elizalde, Mako, Davao de Oro. The participants are consist of adolescents who demonstrate weak relationships with their family, no family attachment, and live in unstructured neighborhoods, no social control, out of social youth, socially deprived, emotionally deprived, and lastly, a juvenile youth who experience going into jail. Materials and instruments. So the first step to undergo in conducting the research is to seek permission from the Dean of College to facilitate the research process, after which the researchers will secure a letter to conduct study and for approval letter from the Barangay Rizal de Maco, Davao de Oro, as respondent to allow them to carry out research in the area. In this study, the researchers will utilize adapted research questionnaires that will be posted in Google form. The questionnaire will be administered by the researchers, which will be accepted as applicable way to raise data to answer the specific problem of the study. The researchers will employ the quantitative research that involves accurate interpretations of findings. Data was collected through questionnaires using correlation and analysis to evaluate why social control and ideological delinquency of children in conflict with the law in Rizal de Maco, Davao de Oro. So as the result will be analyzed and interpreted in the light and purposes of the study. The measurement to be used in analyzing the data is mean, by statistical distribution in which discrete random variable or the number you get in dividing the sum of a set of values by the number of the values in the set. So these are the range of mean with its descriptive containing very high, high, moderate, low, and very low, and an interpretation of the descriptive such as very much evident, less evident, and not evident. Range of mean, descriptive, and meaning. So, if the range of mean is 4.3 to 5.0, which is very high, so this means that social control and ideological obligation on juvenile delinquency in Maco, Davao de Oro is very much high, is very much evident. So when the range of mean is 3.5 to 4.2, which is high, so this means that social control and ideological obligation juvenile delinquency in Maco, Davao de Oro is much evident. When the range of mean is 2.7 to 3.4, which is moderate, it means that the social control and ideological obligation on juvenile delinquency in Maco, Davao de Oro is evident. And when the range of mean is 1.9 to 2.6, which is low, so this means that the social control and ideological obligation on juvenile delinquency in Maco, Davao de Oro is less evident. And lastly, when the range of mean is 1.0 and 1.8, which is very low, so this means that social control and ideological obligation on juvenile delinquency in Maco, Davao de Oro is not evident. By using the statistical measures that calculates the strength of the relationship between two variables, so a value measured between -1 and +1, the correlation coefficient is close to +1. There is a positive correlation between the two variables, such as one variable increases and the other variable also increases. For the instance, the number of youth affected by social control is possibly correlated with the increase of ideological delinquency. If the value is close to -1, so there is a negative correlation between the two variables. As one variable increases, the other variable decreases.
My name is Levi M. Camacho. I am the last who will discuss the result of our research study entitled Social Control and Ideological Delinquency of Children in Conflict with the Law in Maco, Davao de Oro. This chapter presents the answer to the statement of problem and discusses the result and analysis of findings, both textual and tabular form, regarding social control and ideological delinquency of children in conflict with the law in Maco, Davao de Oro. The research analysis determined the level of social control in terms of attachment, commitment, involvement, belief, and determined the level of delinquency in term of legal and illegal activities in order to associate the social control and ideological obligation of the juvenile delinquency. The overall mean obtained by the research respondent to social control and ideological delinquency of children in conflict with the law in Mako, Davao de Oro. The independent variable in Table 1, which is the social control, got an overall mean of 3.50, which is categorized as high, and the dependent variable in Table 2, which is the ideological obligation of juvenile delinquency, got an overall mean of 3.23, also categorized as moderate. Thus, the association between the independent and dependent variable in Table 3 is present. These are the indicators manifested majority and fairly among the respondents' cases in measures of themselves in dealing with the different types of situation and circumstances. So this is the table 1, level of social control. The level of social control and among the resident of Mako, Davao de Oro under the indicator of attachment got a high mean of 3.80, which means that social control under is much evident. The indicator of commitment got a high mean of 3.62, which means that social control is much evident. The indicator of involvement got a moderate mean of 3.30, which means that social control is evident. The indicator of belief got a moderate mean of 3.26, which means that social control is evident. The overall mean got a 3.50, which give a high descriptive, thus indicating that social control is present and rampant in the municipality of Mako, and by giving correlation between the independent and dependent variable can be Table 2, level of ideological obligation on the juvenile delinquency. Legal activity 3. The level of ideological obligation on juvenile delinquency among the resident of Mako, Davao de Oro under the indicator of legal activities got a moderate mean of 3.45, which means that level of ideological obligation of the juvenile delinquency is evident. The indicator of legal activities got a mean moderate of 3.23, which means that level of ideological obligation on the juvenile delinquency is evident. The overall mean get a 3.23, which give a moderate descriptive, thus indicating that the level of ideological obligation on the juvenile delinquency is present and rampant in the municipality of Mako, and by giving correlation between the independent and dependent variable can be further explained. So this is the table 3. Significance on the relationship between social control and ideological obligation on the juvenile delinquency. So the relationship between the dependent variable and the dependent variable is indicated in p value and r value. Since the p value is less than 0.5, that 3 reject the null hypothesis in which there is a significant relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable. The R value 0.830 indicate a positive correlation between the two variables. When one variable increases, the other variable also increases. When the social control increases, the ideological obligation on juvenile delinquency also increases. The R squared 0.6889 times 100% equals 68.89% in the variation of ideological obligation of the juvenile delinquency, in which this can be explained by the social control. The 331.11% or other small factors aside social control shows relationship in the independent variable are not included in our study. So this is the end of my discussion.